In most media depictions of adoption, a significant amount of weight is given to the adopted character wanting to find their biological parents. They often showcase an intense need to know where they came from, who they came from, and why they were left in their early years. The adoptee wonders out loud if they were wanted, if their existence was a mistake, or if their parents had ever really loved them at all. And while most media that shows this desire ends in a relatively neutral way, the reality is hardly as easy. In fact, in recent years, adults who were given up for adoption, meeting their biological parents, has created a psychological phenomenon that has led to incest and murder. Researchers have coined the term genetic sexual attraction to describe this experience, and unfortunately, it's exactly what it sounds like. The following is an excerpt from Cumbria.gov illustrating the subject. Genetic sexual attraction is described as a phenomenon of intense attraction between biological family members that can occur after close relatives are reunited after a long period of separation. Generally, in adoption situations, this affects families separated from birth or very early in the life of the adopted child. Genetic sexual attraction, on the other hand, occurs between two consenting adults who may know nothing of their familial ties prior to meeting, and in some cases have no idea they are even related when they meet. This phenomenon is believed to be caused by several factors, mainly the fact that there is a basic human attraction towards those who have similar physical attributes to us. This attribute is overridden within families due to the Westermark effect, which turns off the sexual attraction part of someone's brain to relatives when they are raised together as a family and label their attractions differently. When separation occurs early within families, this effect does not occur. This therefore leaves individuals open to the attractions of birth family members who are family in name and biology, only without the shared experiences and social conditioning that would normally develop. This is one of the major causes of genetic sexual attraction. A second major factor is the close bonding that generally occurs within families, and particularly between a mother and her child, that can lead to a need for this to occur when they are reunited. This can be a strong feeling of attraction and a need to be close to the other person. The closeness that comes from snuggling, kissing, and comforting an infant is one of the most important biological needs of humans. The lack of this closeness can turn into sexual attraction when reunited as a way of providing this basic need denied to them in the past. Reunion is already an emotionally charged situation, which generally leads to intense feelings of excitement and joy. Adults are often vulnerable at such a level of emotion, more so when you add the two main factors described above. At reunion, normal responses and reactions can be overridden without this being realized at the time. The focus on the newly discovered relative can become all-consuming, and other relationships, work, leisure activities, etc. can suffer. Also, the powerful emotions and pleasure from the experience can easily be expressed in an intimate and eventually sexual manner. Insight, reflection, support, and guidance about something outside of people's general experience and understanding can prevent GSA damaging the formation of an appropriate and lasting relationship. This is why we need to acknowledge its existence and effects. And unfortunately, as you might have deduced, today's case involves exactly this. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today, we are going to be covering the case of Katie and Stephen Pladl. This story was requested by multiple subscribers and patrons, and after we began to do cursory research into the case, it became clear as to why they were so adamant that this case should be covered. This is potentially one of the strangest stories we have ever heard of, but it goes far beyond what we ever expected. With that said, as always, if there is a video you would like to see on this channel or a story you want more attention brought to, email us at dreading.official@gmail.com. We try to go through our emails every day, and are constantly adding new stories to our list. But as of now, we have over 4,000 emails still needing to be sorted, so it might be some time before we get to yours. But we promise if you send it, we will. With all of that said, let us begin. Usually, in cases like the one we are about to cover, there is conflicting testimony regarding the person responsible for the crime. While the vast majority of people will undoubtedly know the person was always capable of whatever they have been accused of, there will also be naysayers, people in their life who will stand by them and believe there was no way they could have possibly seen the crime coming. But that was not the case with Stephen Pladl. Stephen Pladl was born April 6, 1975, and from the start of his life, he was described by those who knew him as a strange character. An unidentified classmate would describe him as being, at best, incredibly odd. Growing up, Pladl was intensely quiet, keeping to himself during school, and oftentimes refusing to acknowledge other people's presence. He would routinely ignore his peers, choosing to sit by himself, immersed in his own mind. He was intensely invested in his own interests, which included the San Jose Sharks hockey team. This interest manifested itself in his adamant refusal to wear anything other than a Sharks jersey every day for a year in high school. According to his peers, when he was asked to remove the jersey for gym class, he was incensed, choosing instead to get a failing grade than change. The few people who were close to him at the time described Stephen as having control and anger issues, often flying off the handle at small slights and taking his frustration out on them, sometimes physically. Despite his hardships in the real world, Stephen would find solace, as so many other people do, online. Via early social media sites, the 20-year-old was able to depict himself to others however he wanted, and it was through these depictions that he met and groomed Alyssa Garcia. Stephen preyed on Alyssa, exploiting the young girl and gaining her trust. When she would vent about her home life or any issues she was facing in school, he would be there for her, telling her everything she wanted to hear and how she deserved better. As the two grew closer and closer, Alyssa began to pull away from her family, as they continued to state that they didn't approve of her friendship and relationship with the 20-year-old. After Stephen flew from New York to Houston to visit the high school student, he would convince her to move out of her family home and move in with him. But the moment she did, Stephen stopped acting as if he were the idyllic, loving, and attentive partner he had been, and began to physically and emotionally abuse the minor. The pair had very little money, and Stephen would often blame the child he was in a relationship with for that being the case. He would place any and all frustrations onto the 15-year-old, and given that she was in a new state, away from family or any other alternative support system, Alyssa began to believe the abuse was normal and deserved. When Alyssa was just 16 years old, she would become pregnant. She hoped that the pregnancy would change Stephen, that he would be more caring and compassionate towards her and their future child, and that the abuse would end. But the opposite was true. When she eventually gave birth to their daughter, Denise, she was horrified at how Stephen treated her. She stated that while she believed that the abuse she suffered at his hand was deserved, witnessing him hurt their newborn made her realize just how bad the situation was. If Denise cried or annoyed Stephen, he would punish her by pinching her until she was black and blue, as well as placing the infant in a cooler to drown out the sound of her crying while holding Alyssa down to prevent her from being freed, and on one occasion attempted to drown the child. It was after this almost drowning that Alyssa made the decision to put Denise up for adoption. She didn't know how to leave Stephen herself, still under the age of 18, with little to no support system outside of her abuser, but she knew that her daughter deserved to grow up in a safe environment, one with parents who could properly provide for her and treat her the way she deserved to be treated. Denise was adopted by the Fusco family, who changed her name to Katie Rose Fusco shortly thereafter. Anthony and Kelly Fusco loved Katie as if they were their own, and supported her in all of her endeavors. When Katie began to pursue art and drawing, they encouraged her endlessly, telling her repeatedly that the only thing that could ever hold her back was herself. The following is an excerpt from Katie's online portfolio, in which she describes herself and her love of art. I've always said since people began to ask me why I love art, it's all I've ever known. As a child, I copied my mother's old drawings and would present her with each doodle, sketch, and painting. In my teenage years, it was where I found my voice. I learned to communicate my emotions to a wide audience, in a way it would grab attention and keep it, typically through humor and relatable situations. I became nearly famous in my oh-so-densely populated high school of roughly 600 students, for my spontaneous little comic strips. A pen and something to draw on became a safe place for me. Ink became my weapon against rules and regulations. There wouldn't be a corner in a classroom or a park that didn't have a secret little character living on it. Ask an artist why creating is important to them, and they won't ever stop giving out reasons. To be short, for me, a life without art is no life at all. The number one inspiration to me is emotions. People, animals, even plants. A gentle shove from the wind, making a dandelion droop toward the ground, makes it seem a little grumpy. A dog laying on its back on a hot summer's day shows contentment. My biggest focus, however, is usually human experiences, although that may just be because I'm around them more often as a fellow human. Expressing beliefs and opinions through a simple cartoon or painting is what I'm mainly interested in. They say writers always look at life as if they were to describe it in full detail a moment later. Well, an artist like myself constantly looks at the world with humor and in short clips, catching short moments so relatable they almost go unnoticed. The emotions people and things show without even thinking about it, that is my inspiration for much of my work. Creativity means stepping out of your comfort zone. into a world full of oil pastels, chalk, and X-Acto knives. An artist walks out of a studio with used-up eraser under their fingernails and acrylic paint unknowingly swept across the brow. And to me, for an average day in an art studio, that is worthwhile. On the other hand, for a person who cannot confidently present a piece of art unless I have full confidence in the overall neatness, there's only one place I can go for reliable safety: Photoshop. On a screen, colors look much more vivid and strong, and most importantly, one wrong stroke of a pen doesn't mean dedicating 30 minutes trying to fix it. It wasn't until a little less than a year ago that I became very confident in Photoshop, even with 5 years experience under my sleeve. If there's any way to leave a program like Niceta, it's to do so with confidence. Katie was well known and well liked at Dover High School, and often spoke out against what she believed were sexist injustices that she witnessed. On one occasion, she led a group of students who petitioned the Dover Board of Education against sexist dress code policy, stating that it was not fair for the women of the school to be punished for wearing the same items of clothing male students were allowed to wear. These themes also made their way into her art, where she regularly showcased struggles that women have faced throughout history and society. A link to her profile will be left in the description box down below, should you want to view it yourself. The fact that Katie was adopted was never hidden or withheld from her, and throughout her life, both Anthony and Kelly were supportive towards Katie's interests in reuniting with her birth family. They were not made aware of the abuse Katie had suffered at the hands of her father, and given the fact that the abuse had occurred in the first few months of her life, she was none the wiser. It wouldn't be until Katie was a senior in 2016 that she would reach out to Alyssa and Steven via Facebook. At this point, the couple had gotten married and had a few more children. What are you, fucking nuts? Alyssa had gotten pregnant with their second child 10 years after Katie was born, and she would state that they were more grown up and well equipped to have children, which is to say that Steven didn't try to actively kill or abuse his own child the way he had with Katie. Oh, thank God. Setting that bar real fucking high, dad of the year over here. When Katie reached out to the parents, they were ecstatic. Both Alyssa and Steven had discussed wanting to have a relationship with their first child, but they didn't want to overstep any boundaries that she might have had. Katie continued to talk to the married couple the duration of her senior year, growing closer to them than she thought originally possible. She felt drawn to them, as if they had been the missing link in her life. More accurately, she felt drawn to her biological father, Steven. According to her peers at the time, she would describe their correspondence as being deeper than she thought possible, and she looked forward to speaking with him whenever she could. As senior year progressed, Katie's plans for her future began to change. She had been adamant that in the coming years she would enroll in a local community college, then transfer to SUNY Purchase to study digital advertising. She wanted to work as an artist, flex her creative muscles, and change the world, but it only took a couple months of speaking with her biological father to change those plans. Instead, much like Alyssa had before her, she was convinced to drop her pursuits of education and instead move in with the much older man. When this change of plans was presented to Alyssa, she was ecstatic. She didn't believe that her husband of nearly 20 years was depraved enough to groom his own child, and instead immediately believed the story he presented, which was that Katie should be a part of their life as their daughter and get to know her siblings. On many online forums, people have attacked Alyssa for not knowing what was about to happen and not being aware of how things would play out. But to be clear, she had been groomed and abused by Steven for years. Her first relationship was with a man who was incredibly controlling, and most people in her situation would have probably done the same thing. She was and is also a victim. Anthony and Kelly were apprehensive about this change, telling Katie that she could still have a successful, supportive relationship with her biological parents while pursuing her future career. But Katie was adamant about the change. The parents knew that their daughter was headstrong and independent, and felt that, even if they disagreed with what was happening, they couldn't make up her mind for her. By August of 2016, Katie would move in with the family of 4, and almost immediately, the dynamic of her relationship with her biological father would change. They were closer than anyone else in the family, and Steven was strangely territorial over Katie. He would try to isolate her from the rest of the children, and whenever Alyssa would enter a room that he was in with Katie, they would all fall quiet. The dynamic was strange, but Alyssa tried not to dwell on it too much. The entire situation was odd. Their biological daughter had rejoined their life in a new and unexpected way, and they were just getting used to the situation. She figured that within time, they would sort out their relationships and things would be fine, but after 2 months, things would just get stranger. Steven began sleeping on the floor in Katie's room. At first, Alyssa believed that the two had simply grown close, and he had simply fallen asleep in the room on accident. But after a month of him choosing to sleep alone in Katie's room on the floor, with the door completely shut, she confronted her husband. At first, Stephen denied and fought Alyssa against her implication, but after a short argument, Stephen stormed out of the home, taking Katie with him, and told Alyssa he wanted a divorce. Alyssa would move out of the home and begin divorce proceedings, but she had no idea just what was happening behind the closed doors of her home. Though she felt that Stephen sleeping in their eldest daughter's room was inappropriate, she had no reason to believe that the man she'd been married to for nearly 2 decades would have groomed Katie the way he had done with her. She believed that he wouldn't cross the very obvious boundary of incest, but she was wrong. It wouldn't be until May 2017, not even a year after meeting her eldest child, that Alyssa would discover just how depraved her ex-husband truly was. Alyssa would stumble upon her 11-year-old daughter's diary, and through reading some of the passages, she found out that her ex-husband had begun a romantic relationship with Katie, that she was pregnant, and that he had told their youngest children to start calling their sister their stepmom. The following is the passage as quoted by the Daily Mail. "My dad calls her baby also his baby. Did he make her pregnant? My dad even says she's my stepmom. What the fuck? He doesn't even want me to say or call her sister anymore. Katie is my sister. She's probably his wife now, but in nature, that's still my sister. Does she see me as a daughter or a sister?" Following this discovery, Alyssa contacted law enforcement in order to gain a protection order against her husband for their shared children. That wouldn't stop him from doing it to his other daughters. She brought the diary entry and told the police everything she knew, and an investigation was started. The investigators would speak to the youngest of the Pladl family, who would state definitely that Stephen and Katie were in a relationship with each other, that they kissed and touched each other in front of them, and that Stephen told them to start calling Katie their stepmom. What the fuck? Where is this going? They also told the investigators that Stephen had told them not to tell anyone else about the relationship. I fucking wonder why, fucking father of the year, with Katie in order to protect her, because people would make fun of her if they knew. Would they? Would they make fun of her? Is that all they would fucking do, bro? This persuasion worked, it seemed, as both girls loved their older sister and repeatedly stated they wouldn't want anyone to hurt their feelings in their interviews. After the protective order was filed, the couple seemed to realize that the nature of their relationship was about to be made public, and moved from New York to Knightdale, North Carolina. There, they were free to openly interact with each other as a couple, without anyone knowing that they were really related. Those who did come into contact with them described them as incredibly affectionate, inappropriately so, but as they stated they were about to be married, many people overlooked their behavior. On July 20th, 2017, just a year after officially meeting, the two were married. They lied on their marriage records stating they were not blood related, and both Stephen and Katie invited their families to attend the wedding. The Fuscos would attend the marriage despite knowing that their adopted daughter was marrying her biological father in order to continue to be an active participant in her life. They were adamantly against the wedding and the relationship as a whole, but also they knew that if they refused to attend the wedding or tried to stop Katie from going through with it, that they would be cut out of her life. Having seen other cases of abuse where a partner is isolated away from any support system besides their abuser, they felt it necessary to be there for their daughter, despite what was happening. Stephen's mother also attended the wedding, although we weren't able to find any statements from her about the relationship. On September 1st, 2017, Katie would give birth to their child, a little boy that she named Bennett. However, shortly thereafter, both Katie and Stephen would be arrested and charged with incest and adultery. Stephen was charged even further with contributing to the delinquency of a minor, as their relationship had started when she was under 18. Their son was placed into the custody of Pladl's mother, Grace, but there was nothing to stop either parent from seeing the newborn. It was only after being arrested and forcibly separated from Stephen by the police that Katie seemed to realize how depraved and abusive their relationship had been. Stephen had taken over all of her focus. Anything she did that he didn't like was taken away from her, and for the past year of her life, she had been almost completely controlled. Her adoptive parents bailed her out of prison almost immediately, and once more provided her a safe environment to understand what had happened. Because of the nature of the charges against the couple, they were barred from speaking to each other, and within a few short weeks, Katie decided that she needed to end the relationship. She broke the protection order set by the court to break up with Stephen. However, as you likely surmised by us discussing this case at all, he didn't take the breakup well. He had established a firm control over his daughter, starting when they first talked online. He had done the same with Alyssa, and he had been able to keep a hold of that control for nearly 2 decades, until he no longer needed her. The very idea that his own daughter, the one that he had so meticulously groomed for years, would leave him was impossible. On April 11th, 2018, mere weeks after Katie had ended their relationship, Stephen would pick up Bennett from his mother's home, under the guise that he wanted to spend time with his son. He would bring the boy back to the house, and upon entering, suffocate the child, then hid his body in a closet. Well, I mean, of course he did. He's fucking Satan, apparently, so, I mean, yeah, tack that onto the list. After killing his son, Stephen would drive from North Carolina to New York, intent on killing his firstborn child / ex-girlfriend. He stalked Katie from outside of her parents' home, waiting for her to leave so he could kill her like he had killed their son. However, Katie was not alone. Her adopted father, Anthony Fusco, and her left the shared home together, intent on running errands that day. But while they were mere blocks away from the family home, stopped at a stop sign, Stephen pulled up behind them and opened fire on their car, killing both of them. He drove off, leaving his ex-wife / daughter to die with the only man worthy of being called her father. While he drove, he called his mother and told her what he had done to Bennett, Katie, and Anthony. She then called the police.
911, address of the emergency.
Yes. My son just called me, and he told me oh my God, in North Carolina, he killed his baby, and he's in the house.
Okay, you said that he told you he killed his baby? Okay, ma'am, listen to me. What's your name? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
He's not home. His wife broke up with him over the phone yesterday, and he told me, she's in New York, and he told me he was on his way. He called me last night and said he's on his way. He's going to bring the baby to her, and then he was coming back. And he just
okay.
He said he killed his wife, he killed her father, and I can't even believe this is happening.
Okay. And did this happen in Nightdale?
No, his wife and father are in New York.
Okay,
and,
so the incident
but
actually...
he left the baby dead when he left.
Okay, where did he leave the baby?
Okay, he said it was in the...
What's your son's name? What's his last name?
Same as mine.
When did this happen?
He said he left last night. He called me, I forget, maybe about 7 last night, and said he was on his way to New York. He was going to bring to his wife and give it to her, and then he'd be back. And he called me this morning. I just got off the phone just a couple of minutes ago, and he told me to call the police, that I shouldn't go over there.
Okay, so the son is so your son is not there?
No, the house is empty. He said he put a key under the front mat. A key to get into the house under the front mat.
Did he say how he did it, or what
no,
he did?
And I didn't ask him. I didn't want to know. Oh my God, he's such a wonderful little.
Okay, hold on just a second, okay? Okay.
Hello.
Okay, I'm still here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get you over to Raleigh Communications, okay? Let me talk first when I call, okay, so I can kind of give them an idea of what was going on, and then I'm going to let you speak with a telecommunicator, okay?
All right.
All right, hold on for me, okay?
Okay.
Are you still with me?
I'm here.
Hey, this is over in Cary. I have a lady wanting to report a possible homicide.
All right.
And she states that she got a call from her son. Was it this morning?
Yes.
this morning stating that his wife had split up with him, and she was in New York, and that he killed their, left him upstairs at the residence.
Just a moment, okay?
So I'm still here, okay?
Okay.
Do you know if he's still at home?
No, he's not.
He's not? Okay.
Okay, Raleigh, I'm going to disconnect.
Okay, thank you, Carrie.
Uh-huh.
Sometime after informing his mother of his heinous crimes, Stephen drove into Dover, New York, and took his own life. Yeah, of course he fucking did. He took his own goddamn life. Okay, it's one of those ones. Bennett, Katie, and Anthony all had longer lives to live, and they were brought down by the actions of one man. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by leaving a like or a comment. I'm interested in seeing how people respond to this case in particular, because on various articles and forums in which this case is discussed, people have incredibly strong opinions on it. Couldn't imagine why. On certain sites, people seem to be of the belief that because both Katie and Stephen were adults, that they did nothing wrong, and the real crime here is that the justice system got involved. Other people seem to be of the mindset that it was somehow Alyssa's fault, and that had she not reported her ex-husband to the police, they would still be alive. The debate around this case is strange, but also informative, so let me know your opinions in the comments down below. Try to be mindful though, as lately YouTube has been aggressively filtering our comments down and at times, shutting comments off entirely. As always, if there is a case you would like to see us cover or a story you would like me to bring more attention to, let us know by emailing me at dreading.official@gmail.com. I'm constantly having to go through and respond to emails, so that is the best way to reach us. With that said, have a great day and remember to stay safe.